Okay, Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. We are picking up from where we had left off. Speaking about the bathroom. We have a lot of halachot, a lot of discussions related to the bathroom. And I had left you guys off with a question that I would like to, hopefully we could cover some ground tonight. And we could get into this discussion. We spent a lot of time about talking about, you know what, we're going to do the last Gemara to help us to remind us to get us started. And the last question was talking about out of bounds rule or in bounds rules. Remember, I said that if you're playing football in the NFL and your feet are in, but your arms are out, if your arms are out of bounds, but your feet are in bounds, you're considered in bounds, right? That's what happens in NFL. What about like soccer? I'm not sure what the league is, but is where the ball is. So you could actually fully be standing out of bounds, but you're not out of bounds. So you see how there's different rules depending on how you define it. So the question was, what's considered in bounds, out of bounds for the bathroom? What does that mean? That means, let's say somebody's arm is inside the bathroom for whatever reason. Let's say he's turning on and off the lights. Let's say he's holding on to something over there and he just happens to be in and out, or he's playing the hokey pokey, whatever it is. You have an arm inside the bathroom, and we had a machloket as to what the halacha is. Are you considered part of the bathroom or not? And one opinion said, Kalatzotai tomarna, your entire body is part of the tefillah to Hashem. So if your hand is in the bathroom, you're invalidating yourself from being able to recite Shema Yisrael. Your hand has to be, everything has to be outside of the airspace of the bathroom. It's not about your foot, it's everything. Or another opinion says, no, it has to do with your neshama, your breath, wherever you're breathing from, meaning your mouth. So theoretically, your foot could be in as long as your head is out. That would be acceptable. Okay? So we have this machloket. And we had spoken about how really we're gonna see more of this, that there's laws of impurity with the bathroom, so that you have to wash your hands after you come out of the bathroom. When you're done with the bathroom, you have to wash your hands. So according to the opinion that sticking your arm inside the bathroom is a bathroom, and that means if you stick your hand in, you really should wash your hands afterwards. Okay? Which is pretty crazy, right? You are going, it's nighttime, you're about to go to bed, and you don't have the Wi-Fi light switches yet in your house. You have the Wi-Fi switches in your house or no? No? Some people have it. So you could just do it from your phone, turn everything off. So but let's say you don't. So you're going around the house and you're turning off the lights, and then you stick your hand in the bathroom, turn it off. We have to wash your hands. Okay, now we're going to talk about, but what happens in today's bathrooms, which aren't necessarily, this is the question I left you off with. The question I left you off with is, it takes you 20 minutes to shave. I'm shaving in the bathroom, or it takes me a few minutes to brush my teeth. Let's say you floss really well. You floss for 2 minutes, you brush your teeth for 2 minutes, and then you do mouthwash for 2 minutes. You're like, by the time you're done, it's like you went to the dentist. Okay, so it's 10 minutes. Well, it's 10 minutes. I want to listen to a shiur. I'm not using the bathroom. I'm just using the sink that happens to be in the same room as the toilet. Am I allowed to listen to shiurim while I'm in there? I'm shaving. It's going to take me half hour. I want to listen to a shiur. Someone asked the question. I think Shelby asked the question, saying, usually when you shave and you're preparing for Shabbat, you want to listen to the Divrei Torah. It's right before Shabbat. Oh, that was you. Okay, sorry. Shelby told me something else. He also asked me this. Actually, to Shelby's credit, he saw me on Shabbat. He said, by the way, I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks. You better give us an answer. And I told him there's no conclusive answer. And then he said, yeah, that's what I expect. Not to be any. So we're gonna talk about that, but we're gonna continue speaking about the bathroom and things about the bathroom so we understand the rules, and then we can answer this question. Okay? Let's pick up from where we had left off. It's Gemara, Masechet Berachot, Daf Kaf Hei Amud Aleph, 25A. And okay. And just to give us a running start, because we haven't learned in a few weeks, let's go to Itmar So'a al Besaro, and this is the Gemara I just said out. We're gonna see it inside. So Itmar So'a al Besaro. Where is that? That is on 25A1, the end of the first column. The first column on the left, at the end. Itmar So'a al Besaro. Let's say his hand is dirty. He has some excrement on his hand. His hand's dirty. Oh, yadom munachat bevet hakiseh. By the way, how would this happen? I don't know. You're changing your child's diaper, and your hand gets dirty, and then it's a time for Shema. So your hand is dirty, but it's not your whole body. Or oh yadom munachat bevet hakiseh. Let me share. Oh, I am sharing screen. Or let's say your hand is in the bathroom, like I said, for whatever reason your hand is in there. Let's say you're turning on and off the lights, or back in the times of Gemara there were no lights. Let's say you're holding on to something that was in the bathroom. Rav Huna Rav Huna says, Mutar likrot Kriyat Shema. You're allowed to recite Kriyat Shema even though your hand is dirty. Rav Chisda Amar, Asur likrot Kriyat Shema. Rav Chisda says, no, you're not allowed to. Amar Rav Amaita Amar Rav Huna. What's the reason for Rav Huna? Kol HaNeshamat Hallelujah. What praises God? Your neshama. Your neshama is where your neshima, your breath, comes from. That's what's praising. So if my hand is in the bathroom and my hand is dirty, it's fine that my hand is dirty. I'm using my mouth to pray to Hashem, and as long as my mouth is clean, I can pray to Hashem by saying Shema. Rav Chisda Amar Asur likrot Kriyat Shema. One may not recite Shema if his hands are dirty. Why? Dichtiv kal asutai tomarna lana michamocha. All of my bones are praising you, Hashem. All of my bones, including my hand. And if there's dirt on my hand, then I can't praise Hashem with poop on my hands. It's not appropriate. Okay? Now, Itmar. The next case, the first case, the previous case, there was a machloket between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. We've had a lot of these machloket between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Rav Huna is more lenient. Rav Huna says you have poop on your hands, it's fine. You can still say Shema. Rav Chisda says no, you have to be fully clean. We have another one. Itmar. Reach ra sheyesh lo ikar. Let's say there's a bad smell. Okay, and when there's a bad smell, and we're talking in the context of the bathroom, there's two types. There's either flatulence or someone who passed gas, where there's a bad smell, but there's no substance. There's nothing physical. It's gas. Okay? But then there's another type. That's reach ra sheyesh lo ikar. But then there is a type of foul odor that has a source, that emanates from a source. What are we talking about? Excrement. Let's say there's someone went to the bathroom. This is like a porta potty. If you ever go to a porta potty, it stinks. And is there a source for that smell that it's emanating from? Of course, it's right there in the porta potty. That's where it's from. So let's say it's time for you to pray, and there's a porta potty next to you. Rav Huna Amar Marchik Arba Amot V'Korei Kriyat Shema. Distance yourself 4 amot from that source, and you could say Shema. All you have to do is go 4 amot, which is about 6 feet away from the source. Rav Chisda, remember, Rav Chisda is more strict. Rav Chisda Amar, he tells us, Marchik arba amot mimakom shepasak hareach. You have to go 4 amot distance from the place where the smell ends. You see, there's a source, a bad smell, right over here at this end of the table. Rav Huna says, just, you see that source, go 4 feet away, go 6 feet away, 4 amot away. It still smells, but that's fine. We know where the smell is emanating from. The rest is in the air. This is emanating from there. As long as you are 6 amot, 4 amot from that source, you're good to say Shema. But Rav Chisda says, no, you also have to consider for the smell. So you have to walk 4 amot away from the smell. Actually, Rabbi, you'll see, we're coming up to that. What? Is that an AI created? I don't know. I hope so. My internet connection is unstable. All right, I mean, it works. So you see, this point right here is the source. So according to the first opinion that says you need to go 4 amot away from the source, so what he's saying is 1, 2, 3, 4. Already at this red line, you could say Shema. The problem is that it still smells up until here. So the second opinion says, no, you need to go 4 amot away from where the smell stops. So that tells you have to go, in this case, 2 amot even further out. First opinion is saying when there's a source of the smell, you know you have to go 4 amot away from it. The other one says no, you have to go 4 amot away from the actual smell. Okay? So you're at a porta potty, you're on the road, you want to pray. You might say, let me just go 4 amot away from the porta potty. That's not enough, according to the second opinion. You have to see where the smell stops and then go 4 amot away from there. Question?
4 amot is outside the realm where the smell is.
Correct.
Let's say the smell still exists 6 amot away from the source. then.
You go 10 amot away.
No, for the first opinion, Rob.
Yes.
Can you still be within the circle of smell?
Okay, excellent question. Excellent question. That's exactly okay. See the way that they have it. Okay, excellent question. Very good. So you're saying, what if 4 amot away still has a smell? Okay, let's see. Um, 5. We have recited. We have seen previously that Shema may not be recited in unclean places. No, I'm sorry. Next one here. 10. He may do so even though the odor still reaches him, provided that its source is behind him so that he does not see it. So this is a Gemara we've seen previously that whenever, let's say someone is praying, we had this Gemara, if someone is praying and he sees that there's excrement on the floor, he should walk 4 amot forward so that it's behind him, because if he's walking backwards, it's still in his eyesight. So there's two things here. One, he has to distance himself. 2, he shouldn't be able to see it. But according to this opinion, it's okay if he smells it. So as long as it's behind him, he's allowed to walk 4 amot. The excrement in this case is exposed. Ritva, however, says the Gemara speaks of where the source of the odor is covered, even if it is in front of him. See Rishonim here for the different versions of Rav Huna's statements. The place of a person is defined as 4 amot that surround him. Okay, very good. So yeah, simple understanding is exactly what Tony is saying, is that the first opinion, Rav Huna is simply saying you have to be away from it by 4 amot, and you shouldn't see it. So you should be in front of it, facing east or facing towards Yerushalayim. At 1 amah, we go the most lenient opinion. Okay, each amah is 6 tefachim. Okay, calculator time. Or actually, let's just do it in Excel because there's 2 opinions. Each amah is 6 tefachim. Okay, so tefachim per amah is 6. And then we're saying 4 amot. Now, centimeters, actually, there's 2 opinions here. Centimeters per tefach, there's 2 opinions. One opinion, I'll make this bigger. So you see, I'm trying to make a grid. One opinion is 8 centimeters, each tefach. This is called the opinion of Rav Chaim Na'eh. The Chazon Ish says 9.6 centimeters are in each tefach. That's what the Chazon Ish says. So how many tefachim per amah? 6. So if you... Right. So basically, if you want to know how many centimeters there are per amah, it's this. The ranges of centimeters per amah is somewhere between 48 and 58 centimeters per amah. But now we need 4 amot. So if you want to say in 4 amot, this is not the best labels, but in 4 amot, it's going to be this times 4. This times 4, or this times 4. So now we're saying about 2 meters. Slightly less or more than 2 meters is 4 amot. Now how much is 2 meters? There are a bunch of Americans here. Yeah, 2 meters is approximately 6 feet. So that's why I was saying 4 amot or 6 feet. It turns out, on average, each amah is 1.5 feet. So 4 amot is 6 feet. Okay? We're saying that each 4 amot is about 2 meters, which is about 6 feet. Okay? So that's what we're saying. We could call it 6 feet. For this table is 6 feet, right? This table that I'm on is a 6-foot table. So you see the source over here. East is that way. Walk up 6 feet 4 amot and pray. That's the first opinion. Even though you could still smell it. You could still smell it. If there was feces right over here, you'd probably see it there. But the second opinion says, no, go until it stops smelling. It stops smelling over there. Then go 4 amot past that. And then you pray. Okay? And for these types of things, we try to be strict. There are times to be lenient, but we try to be strict. Okay? Very good. Let's keep going. Now, Rav Chisda is strict. He wants you to go 4 amot past the smell. And he's an Amorah. Remember, we have Rav Huna and Rav Chisda are two opinions that are Amoraim, which means a generation of the Gemara between the years 200 and 500. Now, where the Gemara in the next step says, Tanya kavete de Rav Chisda. We have a Baraita that was written by the Tanaim that is in accordance with the opinion of Rav Chisda. If you go find a Tanaitic statement, a statement of the Tanaim that's in line with Rav Chisda, it's a good proof for him, because this is not something new that he's making up. He has a source for it. Let's see, what is that Baraita? It's a very long Baraita, and we really care about the end. So bear with me. Let's go. It's long, and we really care about the end. So you'll see at the end, it's a proof for Rav Chisda. Lo yikra Adam kriyat Shema. The Baraita says a person should not read kriyat Shema lo keneget tzoat Adam, not next to human feces. V'lo keneget tzoat klavim, or dog feces. V'lo keneget tzoat chazirim, or pig feces. V'lo keneget tzoat tarnegolim, or chicken feces. V'lo keneget tzoat ashpa, or ashba sherecha ra. And also not next to a garbage dump. A person should not pray that has a bad smell. A person should not pray next to poop, okay, or is a human, animal, or a garbage dump, which stinks. And if happens to be that you are next to it, but you're 10 tefachim higher than it or lower than it, how far is 10 tefachim? Look at the screen. Yeah, say it. 80 centimeters or 96 centimeters, which is about a meter. 96 centimeters is about a meter, which is about 3 feet. Right? Because 10 tefachim is not even 2 amot. It's less than 2 amot. So if you go by 80 centimeters, 100 centimeters is a meter. So 100, it's about 1 meter, or 100 centimeters is about 3 feet. So 80 centimeters is slightly less. It's 20% less, right? So yeah, okay, 80 centimeters or 96. This high. If it happens to be that you're next to it, but you're elevated, you're on the next floor, there's a staircase. But you imagine from here to, you know how we have stairs going up in Shara Rachamim? Imagine one is here, one is there. So you're next to it, but you're above it, right? You're 10 tefachim higher or 10 tefachim lower or down. What does the Baraita continue saying? Yoshev betzido v'karei kriyat Shema. Then you're allowed to say Shema right there, because you need to have distance of 4 amot if you're on the same plane. But if you're on a different level, then you could even say it at the same place, because you're in a different area. Fine. Ve'im lav, and if let's say you're not 10 tefachim away, either higher or lower, marchik mimenu melo einav, then you have to go as far as you can see it. You can't see it. It's something that you have to go so far to the point that you can't see it, which is telling you could go in front of it. This is true for Shema, and it's also true for Tefillah. Now here is the part of the Baraita we care about. Reach ra sheyesh lo ikar. Now we're talking about something that has a smell. Up until now we weren't talking about a smell. We were just talking about excrement. Now we're talking about something that has a smell and has a source. Remember, we had a machloket between Rav Huna that says just go 4 amot away, and Rav Chisda says 4 amot from when the smell ends. Let's see what the Baraita says. Marchik 4 amot mimakom hareach. You need to go 4 amot away from the end of the smell. The correct kriyat Shema, and then you say Shema. So you have a proof from the Baraita, like the second opinion, like Rav Chisda, that you need to go 4 amot away from where the smell ends. Once you stop smelling it, go 4 amot. Okay? You're confused.
Can't see it at all.
That doesn't have a smell. So this Baraita is there's 2 issues here. There's 2 issues here. One is, am I allowed to pray next to a pig poop if I'm right next to it? So we're saying, no, you cannot do it right next to it unless you're 10 tefachim up or 10 tefachim down. And if you don't have that level issue, then you have to go so that you can't see it. You're not allowed to be looking at it. So you have to go to a point. This is like what we read on Tony's point, that both opinions are saying it only works if you're going in front of it. So if the dung is here, you're walking 4 amot forward, so you don't see it. That's what it means, melo enav, to the point that you can't see it, right? It doesn't mean you have to go, if the human eye visibility is 3 miles, you have to walk 3 miles away. It just means to the point that you're not seeing it, which means to go in front of it. So look at the melo enav. He must distance himself to a point where it is no longer within his eyesight, and then he may recite Shema. Footnote 17. Oh, it goes through this whole long thing. All right. Homework. You could read it. All right. But it just means we're until a point where you can't see it, which if you're going in front of it. Okay. But we have a proof here for the opinion of Rav Chisda. But we have Amar Rava. Rava says, by the way, this Baraita that you're bringing as a proof of Rav Chisda, we don't hold like that Baraita because we hold like another one. Amar Rava, the law does not follow this opinion. In this entire discussion. But rather the law follows the following halacha. Lo yikra adam kriyat Shema. A person may not recite Shema. Lo keneged suat adam. Not next to an human Adam, human excrement. V'lo keneged suat chazirim, or pig excrement. V'lo keneged suat klavim, or dog excrement. Bizman shenatan orot letochan. If there is skin placed inside it. Does anyone have any idea what this is talking about? Okay. Makes sense, because this is not something they do anymore. They used to put skin, hides, to make leather out of it. They used to put it in excrement. So the pig would poop, then afterwards they would take it, mix it with some leather. The leather would have a reaction, some sort of a chemical reaction to soften it up, and it would get it ready to now go sell it, put a Chanel sticker on it, and then sell it for $100,000. Okay, it's just poop, straight up poop. But this orot is talking about skins. Look, one may not recite Shema opposite human excrement, nor ever. Human excrement says under all circumstances, they add that. But for the animals, nor pig excrement or dog excrement, which skins have been placed for tanning. But other materials do not defile the venue of prayer. So what we're learning is, this Baraita tells you that if a dog went over there and it doesn't have a smell, it's fine to pray there. But if it gets mixed with, in the tanning process, there starts being a reaction between the leather and the excrement, and that really stinks, and you can't pray there. All right, look, this is not something we're going to have much more, but this is just teaching you that according to this opinion, if a dog went to the bathroom, it wouldn't preclude you from praying there. It would only be an issue if that dog excrement was mixed with the hides as part of the tanning process. Okay, here we go. So far we just spoke about a smell that has a source. Okay, now we're going to talk about everyone's favorite subject. Favorite subject, a smell that has no source, which means you ate cholent. You ate cholent, they served cholent in Kanisa, and now there's a lot of smell. There's a lot of smell all over the place. Maybe some sound also. You get 2 of the senses in it. Okay, Ba'u minei Rav Sheshat. They asked Rav Sheshat, Reach ra she'en lo ikar, mahu. What's the rule about, am I allowed to pray if I smell someone passing gas? Okay, you're in the middle of your Amidah, all of a sudden you're like, you know that someone ripped one. Or let's say you're learning Torah. Look, it's possible right now, you guys are you're pretty comfortable next to each other. Let's say all of a sudden, back row, one of the 3 of you. Okay, I'm not judging. Let's say, I don't know, you guys, I don't know which one it was. But let's say can the rest of you continue learning Torah? Are you allowed to? Reach ra she'en lo ikar, a bad smell that doesn't have a source. Mahu. They have a chair right here. No one is joining me though, so I'm safe. Amar lahu. The Baraita tells us this is his answer. Rav Sheshat gives him answers. Atu chazu hanu tzipeh debe Rav. He said, all you need to do is go to the Beit Midrash, and you'll know your answer. Why? What happens to the Beit Midrash? Dehavu ganu, v'havu garse. What happens is they used to have mats. Come look at chazu hanu tzipeh debe Rav. Come look at the Beit Midrash, and you'll see that there are mats on the floor, like little mattresses. It seems like what they used to do is that while people were learning in the Beit Midrash, they would want to take a power nap. So how do you take a power nap? They had yoga mats on the floor or something, and these guys would just go lie down. So while you'd be learning, he would go lie down and take a power nap. Instead of taking a power nap at his desk, he'd go lie down. Okay, so this is like in the Beit Midrash, they would have mats, like yoga mats. So he's saying, what do you think is happening when that guy is sleeping there? When someone is sleeping, they're just farting up a storm. This is like what practically is happening. So he says, the rest of us are still learning. It's not like we stop learning because of it. So you see from here, Rav Sheshat says, if you ever come to a Beit Midrash filled with a bunch of guys, and all of a sudden one of them has to lie down for a minute, you know that it's going to smell, and you know where it's coming from. But still, since there's no source, you're allowed to continue studying Torah. Fine? And this works with Torah study. But not with Kriyat Shema. There's something different. Torah study is like a long process. It can be hours. It's a lot of back and forth. If someone by accident lets something slip, you could continue studying Torah. But Shema Yisrael, you need to have kavanah. You need to focus on what you're saying. You need to focus on the fact that you're accepting God as your God. So since you need to have so much intention, a bad smell is going to throw off your entire kavanah. So therefore, we're not allowed to recite Shema if there's a bad smell. Now look at this. V'divrei Torah nami lo amran. And even for Torah, where we said, or Rav Sheshet said, you are allowed to learn if there's a bad smell. Lo amran ela dechavrei. That's only if it was your friend. Aval dideh lo. But if it was your own, if you yourself let one rip, then you are not allowed to learn. So what happens is if, let's say, for example, there's a room full of 10 guys and they're all learning next to each other, and it starts to smell, and you see one of them stops learning Torah, you know which one it came from. He who stopped learning dealt it. That's what the halacha over here is telling us. That you're allowed to keep learning, and this is what Rav Chisda says, that there would be people who are lying down and they were sleeping. They would pass gas, the rest of it was are allowed to continue learning. But if he himself passed it, he's not allowed to continue learning. Now, Rabbeinu Yonah, I listened to Rabbi Rasner, who quotes Rabbeinu Yonah, that says that actually this is counterintuitive. Why? Because usually someone's own smell doesn't bother him as much as someone else's smell. Someone's own smell, it's like, okay. But someone else's smell, it's like, oh, disgusting. Get out of here. Why'd you do that? But then, like, he's just getting an excuse to let one go himself. Like this, like for himself. So even though that's the case, there's a difference. Because you can't control if the other guy is farting. So you're allowed to continue learning. Otherwise, Saturday night, after the children, you're not going to be able to learn any Torah. So you are allowed to keep learning if the other guy's farting. Other guy's passing gas. But if you're the one passing gas, yeah, sorry, Bissell, I made it explicit because I saw you. But I see someone's head sticking through, so we got to mention farting. But if you yourself are the one who's learning, and you yourself are the one who passed gas, you have to pause. We penalize you because you're in control. You could have held it in and you didn't. Okay, let's keep going. All right, Daniel. Next time someone in your class, be like, stop learning right now. Stop. It'll be a good excuse. Okay, here we go. Just when you thought we're done talking about excrement and smells, the Gemara is going to improve. Okay, continuing with the Gemara. So'a overet. There is moving feces. The feces is moving. Let's say, for example, there's a truck, like a garbage truck or a gardener's truck or a porter potty on the back of a truck, and it's or a donkey that smells or something that has excrement with it. Yes. Oh, okay, very good. Let's say the guy has so'a on him. Let's say, for example, someone else has it on their shoe, and they're going for a walk and they're passing by you. That's the question. The question is, the excrement is passing by. The question is, do I need to interrupt? Do I need to stop my Shema? Or can I say, since this thing is not established, then I can keep going? Okay, there's a truck that passes by. I don't need to interrupt my Shema. Another truck comes passing by. I have to stop. No, I don't need to stop. That's the question. Okay, so overet. Abaye Amar. Abaye says, Mutar likrot kriyat Shema. You're allowed to say Shema, even though this thing is passing you, and even though let's say it's moving slowly, and it has a strong smell. It's not stationary. You're allowed to say Shema. Rava Amar, 1 second. Rava argues and says, no, Asur likrat kriyat Shema. You may not recite kriyat Shema. If this thing came into your airspace, then wait for it to go and then continue. But you have to pause. It's machloka between Abaye and Rava about so'a overet. So'a is excrement. Overet means that it's passing by. Yes, question?
For excrement, is it also apply to like car exhaust and anything else that bothers you?
Yeah, okay, excellent question. Is this unique to excrement, or is this anything that has a strong, bad, foul odor? And I believe it's anything that has a foul odor. I believe so. And we're gonna see that that's the case even with an animal. Yes, it's something that has a very strong odor, even, but it's a good question. Like yeah. The question is like something like gas. Maybe it's a little bit more subjective. Like some people go into the gas station and they start like sniffing this up. You know those people, they roll down the window at the gas station.
Thinking car exhaust, like diesel car.
Yeah. Like pollution or something. Like I said, yeah, like a garbage truck, for example. It may not be excrement, it could be something else. It's a good question. I think it would apply. Yes. I think the rule that we have here about so'ah overet, actually, I'm not entirely sure. I want to look into it. There's a machloket, and the machloket is not done. It's going to defend each of the sides. We're going to explain each of the sides, and maybe we could see if we think this applies to other things. Questions? Yes, let's go this way. Yes.
Any different?
Why would this be anything that's passing gas? Because there is a source. So the concern here is not just the smell. The concern is that you're praying, and there's a guy walking by you that now in your 4 amot, there's actual excrement. So if there was actual excrement there, stationary, you can't pray there. But now this thing is moving. Does the fact that it's moving make it any more lenient? And say like this thing is moving, I don't have to stop every time it comes into my 4 amot. Let's say it's moving back and forth for whatever reason. Like you might say that I don't need to, or I might say, yeah, no, it's in your area, it's a source, and you have to stop. Yeah.
When you say flash notice is moving also, the gas is always, let's say there's a fan.
Correct. Yeah. So it's a good point that gas is matter, so it is something. But here we're talking about some solid, not a gas. We're talking about yeshlo ikar. The Gemara is not getting so like philosophical here. It's saying like there's excrement that's passing by you. Smell that doesn't have a source has a different law because there's no excrement. The halakha is acknowledging that actual excrement is different than a smell of excrement.
Say it's a garbage, something passes by you, and it's the exact same smell as flash notice would be, and that smell lingers after the garbage truck leaves. Wouldn't it be the exact same situation?
You're bringing a good point, but you're making this about the smell, whereas the discussion of the Gemara is not about the smell, it's talking about the excrement. In other words, you could even assume that this thing doesn't have any smell.
Source is a person is the flash notice, but let's say we're just smelling, let's say they're from a South Asian country. And
Right.
it's smelling-
Right. So here again, in this case particularly that we're talking about now, the words are so'ah overet. We're talking about excrement that is passing by. So it's not a someone that has BO that's passing by. In this case specifically, so maybe I take it back.
Basically.
Yeah, but again, you're making this about the smell. We're not talking about smell here. This is focused on the excrement, even if it doesn't smell.
The excrement is like hidden, so they had an accident in their pants.
Okay, that's a good question.
You can't prove it,
That's a
but
good
still-
question. We're gonna get up to that. What happens if you have a reason to believe there is, but you don't know that there is, like a safek? Yeah. A diaper. A diaper is a perfect example. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Right? There's a fair reason to believe that it is there, but maybe it's not. So that's an example. Let's say there's a baby in front of me, and I think he smells. Did he just pass gas, or did he actually? Is his diaper dirty? That very good. Yeah, very good. So these are okay. So that's another example of so'ah overet. Very good. That's a good example. So actual excrement that's overet, that's passing. Let's say there's a baby that's walking by you, or is in a stroller almost, and they're pushing a stroller very slowly, and you know it's there. do I have to stop saying Shema or can I continue saying it? Because I'm going like this for the smell, but it's not the smell, it's the actual excrement. That's the question here. Yeah.
Would manure also be considered swell?
Okay, so you're talking about like in the farm, for example, where they're taking cow manure or something. So you saw here, it's a good question. We saw that Ravat told us that the animal excrement is a problem only if there is orot betochan, if there's hide within them, because even though the animal excrement will smell by itself, the animal excrement by itself doesn't disqualify. It's if it really has a stench, and that happens whenever you put the leather in it, to do the tannery. So based on this, no, the animal manure would not be a problem. However, if a person can't have kavanah, as we spoke about, that if there's something that's preventing you from having kavanah, then yeah, you should move. But from the excrement from the perspective of excrement, we said that it's only if there's orot betochan, if there's leather within it, which means there's some sort of a chemical reaction that makes it stink. Let's go. So we have a machloket between Abaye and Rava. Abaye says that if it's moving, you could continue saying Shema. Rava says you can't. Where are they learning this out from? Abaye is going to learn this out from the laws of a mitzorah. The laws of Tuman Tahara of a mitzorah. What is a mitzorah? A mitzorah is someone that has some sort of a skin discoloration, or there's a color discoloration on the bricks of a house or on someone's clothing. Right? Tzarat. Now, that person is tameh, and he can make other people tameh by being in the same room as him. So if we had a mitzorah in this room, all of us would become tameim. So what has to happen with a mitzorah? He has to go into quarantine. He's not allowed to be with other people because other people will become tameh. Now, in addition to being under the same roof, even being under the same tree is a problem. So let's say you are taking a break and you go and you go to a tree and you sit down under the shade and you take a drink, and all of a sudden you turn around and you see right behind the other side of the tree there's a mitzorah. Guess what? You just became tameh because you're under the same ohel as him. But the question is, what happens if you're under the tree and the mitzorah is passing by under the tree? He is a mitzorah overet. Do you also get that same tumah because he passed by under the tree, or do you say it's only if he's there? And that discussion is going to be used as a parallel to say, if you think that if I'm just minding my business, having my potato chips under a tree, and a mitzorah walks right by, and all of a sudden you say, I'm also tameh, so then you would say that mitzorah overet is a problem, so overet is a problem. Like Rava, you can't say Shema if you have excrement that's passing by. But if you say, since it's not stationary, I'm not tameh, so the mitzorah is walking by, who's walking by, I don't become tameh from that, then maybe you would make the same argument by excrement. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. Amar Abaye says, Mina Allah, how do I know that moving excrement is not going to be a problem for saying Shema? Did not, because we learned in the Mishnah. Hatameh omet tachat ilan. Let's say a mitzorah is standing under a tree, which means he is stationary. Ve'atahor over, and someone who is pure is passing by tameh. As he's passing by under the tree, he becomes tameh. You went under his tree, you became tameh, even though you were passing by. Flip the case, tahor omet tachat ilan. But let's say the pure person is under the tree, like I said, just minding your business, eating your potato chips, everything is fine. The tameh over, and then all of a sudden a mitzorah is passing by. Tahor, you're pure. This is a case for the mitzorah, is that if you're there and he's just like, let's say there's running a marathon and a mitzorah is running under the marathon, just runs under your tree, you're pure, you're fine. Ve'im amot. However, if he stopped, let's say he stopped, he had to tie his shoelace, so he hangs out for a second, takes a drink, tameh, you became tameh. So what do you see? You see that if there's a pure guy standing under a tree, if the mitzorah is passing by, he remains pure. If the mitzorah comes under the tree and stops, he becomes tameh. So you see from here that a mitzorah overet, passing by mitzorah, it's not going to make you tameh. So Abaye says, I'm going to extend that to the law of Shema. That if so'ah is overet, excrement is passing by, it's not going to stop me from saying Shema. V'chen be'even hamenugat, similarly, in addition to the law of a person who's a mitzorah, The same law applies to a stone that is mitzorah, that has a nega on it. So one of the places a person can get tzaraat is on the stone. All of a sudden, this marble tile or this stone over here gets tzaraat, you have to break it out. Let's say you're breaking it out and you want to go bury it. So you're taking it out, and while you're walking out, there's a guy standing under the tree, and you go there, you're like, oh, this is heavy. You put it down on the floor. The guy who was under the tree, since it became stationary, the other people under the tree also got the tumah, contracted the tumah of the stone. Whereas if it were just moving, he would not contract the tumah. Okay? This is what Abaye wants to say. Since a moving mitzorah does not make the person under the tree tameh, so too, moving feces does not preclude you from reciting Shema. It's moving, it means you can ignore it. Rava says, time out. What does one have to do with the other? Hatam the situation about the mitzorah, you know why it matters whether it's moving or not? Because the Torah says that it depends on where he is settled. What does the pasuk say? Dichtiv. The pasuk says by the mitzorah, badad yeshev. He has to sit in quarantine alone, michutz lamachane moshavo, because his dwelling place belongs outside of the camp. So what matters for the mitzorah is his dwelling place. And what do you consider his dwelling place? When he's stationary. If he's moving, that's not his dwelling place. It's not considered his moshav. His moshav is when he's stationary. So Rava says, yeah, if a mitzorah is walking by, you're not going to become tameh because that's not his moshav, that's not his dwelling place. And his dwelling place is the place that becomes tameh. But when it comes to excrement that's walking by, the Torah says that your camp needs to be clean. And it's not clean. If you have excrement in next to you, even if it happens to be moving, it's still excrement and it's not clean. So don't bring a law that has to do with Tumah and Tahara, which is a metaphysical, ritualistic purity, and bring that to teach me something about hygiene and cleanliness. Tumah, there's rules about it. It's spiritual impurity. This excrement comes next to you. It's physical impurity. So Rava says, even if it's passing by, a person cannot say Shema. Okay? Next, Amar of Papa, once we learn the law of So'a Overet, a moving excrement, Rava wants to pick on one specific animal, the pig. Pi Chazir Kitso'a Overet Dami. The mouth of a pig has the same status as moving excrement, which means it's machloket. According to Rava, it's a problem. According to Abaye, it's not a problem. Why? Because the mouth of the pig almost always has some excrement in there, and it's just moving around. Why? Apparently, pigs eat their own excrement. You know about this or no? They just roll in their thing. Anyone ever say you like living in a pigsty? I guess that means you're like rolling in your own excrement and eating it. This is a pig. Actually, I had mentioned this on the night of Shavuot. According to the Rambam, this is one of the reasons why pig is not kosher. The Rambam says the pig is the most filthy animal. It poops and then goes and eats it. The thing is, Rav Papa is telling us that this live walking pig has the status, halakhic status of excrement. Why? Because it has excrement on it. It has excrement. It's chewing on excrement. The thing is disgusting. So the Rambam says that's why we don't eat it, because it's a disgusting animal. It's a filthy animal. And if you were to eat pig, you would be having pig around you, and then you would be living in a very disgusting life. This is what the Rambam says, and one of the reasons. So the Gemara's first response is pshita. That's obvious. Of course, a pig is considered like the status of excrement. It has excrement on it. The Gemara says lo tzricha. No, I'm not talking about when it actually has excrement. Af agav the salek min hara. Even if it's coming out of the river, let's say the pig comes out of the beach, comes out of the river, and it's what you call in Farsi vashvash. It's like shining. It just showered. You just showered the thing. Rav Papa says, still, the thing is so filthy, it still has a status of moving excrement. Okay. All right. You want to hear something? I was learning this Gemara on the night of Shavuot, and I was like very tired. It was like 2, 3 a.m. or whatever it was. Maybe it was 1 a.m. And I was like, okay, are we done with the topic of excrement? And then I continued doing this. I'm like, no, it really feels like this is going on forever. And I remember at 2 a.m. I was like, what? I'm learning in circles right now, but no. The Gemara just keeps talking about it. We're now going to talk about the next topic that we're talking about is safek so'ah or safek meraglaim. Safek so'ah means I don't know if there is feces in here, which is what Adam's case is. Let's say a dirty diaper or a diaper. A diaper maybe has excrement in there, maybe doesn't. It's a valid concern. It's not like I would never have a doubt about that corner over there of like maybe it has excrement, maybe it doesn't. It's not. But let's say there's a place like a toilet. A toilet. It's possible that the guy before me didn't flush the toilet. Sometimes if I ever go to a public, I don't know why, you go to a public place, sometimes the guys just don't flush the toilet. Right? You just walk into a stall and it's like the guy just didn't bother to flush. I don't know when he didn't even wipe. Just got up and left. So like that's like a situation of when you're going into a bathroom, it's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if I found excrement, right? So there's a safek case but that's a bathroom. Let's say you're talking about a place that's not a bathroom, a place that's safek so'ah. That means maybe there's so'ah there. I have a reasonable doubt, but it's a doubt. And then the same would be with urine. Let's say, for example, there's a place that there's a reasonable doubt as to whether there's urine there or not. I don't know for sure there is. I don't know for sure there isn't. Am I allowed to recite Shema there? That's the question. There's a child in this room, and this child is wearing a diaper, and the diaper looks like it's puffy, but I don't know if there's poop in there. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Am I allowed to recite Shema? Excrement might be there, maybe not, as an example. Okay? That's the case we're dealing with now. Amar Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda says, Safek so'ah, if there's a doubt or uncertainty as to the presence of feces, asura, one may not pray in its presence. You can't. You see a diaper that's full, you can't pray there. Because if it's feces, it's a problem. And there's a safek, so I'm not going to do it. Safek meraglaim. But if it's a doubt of urine, mutarim. In the case of a doubt of urine, you would be allowed to pray. So let's say, for example, it's possible a dog peed here or something like that, as an example. Maybe not a dog, maybe a human is a better example. But if I'm not sure, well, if you're not sure about feces, you're not allowed to pray there or say Shema. If you're not sure about urine, you are allowed to. Ika da Amri, some say you're getting the details a little bit wrong. It depends on where you are. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says safek so'ah. If you have a doubt as to whether there's feces or not, it depends. Babait, if it's inside the house, muteret. You're allowed to recite Shema there. Why? Because you normally don't have so'ah inside the house. But be'ashpa, if it's in a garbage dump, and you have a reasonable doubt as to there being so'ah there, asura, it's forbidden. So this version of Rav Yehuda splits out. Because Rav Yehuda in our first statement says, Safek so'ah, if you're not sure if there's excrement there, asura, you can't say Shema. The second one says, no, hold on a second. If you're not sure if there's so'ah there, if it's in the house, you are allowed to recite Shema. Because normally it isn't. There isn't just excrement lying around in your house. So what does this mean? Let's say there's a strong smell that you think maybe there's actual excrement here, for example, or you see something on the floor. Is that excrement? So if it's in the house, he would say it's fine. You could go ahead and recite Shema. If it's outside of the house, if it's by the garbage dump in the middle of the street, then you would not be allowed to recite Shema. Safek meraglaim. However, if a doubt of urine, afilu be'ashpa nami mitorin, then even in the garbage dump, you would be allowed to pray if you're not sure. If you're not sure if there's urine there. So that's how there's two versions of Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda's first version just distinguishes and says a safek, which means a doubt. Safek of excrement, no Shema. Safek of urine, yes Shema. The second version is, well, no, hold on a second. Safek of excrement depends. In the house, yes Shema. In the garbage in the street, no Shema. And safek of urine, even in the garbage, yes Shema. You're allowed to say Shema if you're not sure. if you're not sure. Okay. Now, if you're going to distinguish between feces and urine, and say a doubt of urine is you're allowed to recite Shema, Savala ki had Rav Hamnuna, he holds like the opinion of Rav Hamnuna. What does Rav Hamnuna say? Hold on a second. Rav Hamnuna says, Lo asra Torah ela keneged amud bilvad. The Torah only prohibited by the urine stream. One may not recite Shema and pray if someone is actively urinating. That is a person is not allowed to do. That's the opinion of Rav Huna. Look at the Rabbi Yonatan. As Rabbi Yonatan learns it out on the Pesukim. How does Rabbi Yonatan learn it on the Pesukim? The Rabbi Yonatan, Rabbi Yonatan says there's two verses in the Torah that have different implications. Ketiv, it says in one verse, there should be a designated place outside of your camp. V'yatzata shama chutz. And you should go there. You should have a designated place outside of your camp to go to the bathroom. That's one pasuk. What does it say? There should be a spot outside of the camp where you go to the bathroom. Uchtiv, the second pasuk says, V'yatet lecha, you should have a shovel with you. V'chisita tze'atecha, and cover your excrement. So you have two pasukim. One of them says, go out of the camp, but it doesn't say anything about having to cover it. You don't have to cover it. The other one says, cover it. So how does that work? HaKetzad? Sounds like I have to cover it in one case, but I don't have to cover it in another case. Kan migdolim, kan miktanim. It depends if it's a big job or a small job. Gidolim are big, meaning number two. Ktanim are small, meaning number one. If it's a number two, you have to cover it. If it's number one, you don't have to cover it. So what do you see? That the Torah just says, go outside of the camp because while you're urinating, you can't be next to people. But once you're done, the fact that it's there, you don't have to cover it. It's fine if it's there. You see that by urine, only by the urine stream, one is not allowed to recite Shema. But once it's on the ground, one would be allowed to recite Shema, technically from the Torah. But the Rabbanan came and said, no, we shouldn't do that. But since the rabbis were the one that said one may not recite Shema next to urine, because from the Torah it's fine, but they came and they said that you shouldn't, since it's a rabbinic decree, they only said it's a problem if you know it's actually there. Bivada'an means with certainty you know it's there. But if you're not sure, then it's fine. So you see what we're saying here is that, remember, Rabbi Yehuda is telling us that when it comes to excrement, if you're not sure, you got to err on the side of assuming it's there. So in the house, it's fine. You could assume it's not there. But in the garbage dump, it smells. You see something. You have to assume it's excrement. You can't say Shema next to this garbage dump. But when it comes to urine, if you're not sure, you're allowed to. Why? The answer is because even if you're sure it's there from the Torah, you would be allowed to. It's just the rabbi said don't. So since it's only a rabbinic thing, if you're not sure, you would be allowed to recite Shema there. Okay. Question.
You're theoretically allowed to wear tefillin while you're urinating, but you would be allowed to like do it Amidah.
Why are you allowed to what? Say it again.
I thought earlier that you could like wear tefillin. Some people do it while urinating.
Yes.
But they wouldn't like.
Wouldn't be allowed to pray.
They wouldn't be allowed to pray.
Correct. So very good question. We spoke about this. That what we're saying now is that your tefillin, you would be allowed to. When we had this discussion about tefillin, we spoke about how the Zilberman's yeshiva they'll urinate with tefillin on, and we spoke about this. But there's a reason for it. It's that the person has it on. If it was at the end of the day, if it's by shkia, at the end of the day, you have to take it off. Because if you're going to have to take it off afterwards anyway, like this is what we spoke about. But regardless, here we're not talking about wearing tefillin, we're talking about reciting. Even when you're wearing tefillin, if you're urinating, you are not allowed to recite Shema during the act of urinating. That's something that we're learning now, that during the actual act, you're not allowed to recite Shema or say tefillah. You might be allowed to continue wearing tefillin if you were planning to wear it afterwards and you didn't want to take it off, so there's room for leniency there. Although no one actually does, we don't go to the bathroom with your tefillin on. We don't do it. But technically speaking, there are leniencies for someone that wears tefillin all day long. However, when it comes to reciting Shema, it's a problem no matter what, during the act of urinating. Okay? All right. That we're done. We're not done. The last, really, this I think this is the last subject in the topic. What time is it? 9:37. Let's see if we could bang this out right now and finish it up. Is now we're talking about urine and excrement, and that next to the excrement is a problem. Next to the urine, it's only a problem rabbinically. We want to know how long. Let's say, for example, you know that someone urinated here like 10 years ago. But like at some point you're gonna say it's gone, right? Let's say, for example, it's still you see a puddle. Okay, so that's still there. But let's say you don't see a puddle, you just see the mark absorbed in the ground. So you know that something was here, but there's nothing to feel. What do you consider urine? That you say, hey, look, it's a problem. Same question with excrement. Is there a point that if there's excrement right in front of you, is there a point that this thing has become so old that you know what? It's fine. You're allowed to say Shema there. This is the next topic of the discussion. All right, let's just keep going. When it comes to urine, how long is one not allowed to recite Shema next to it? Until when? Until what point? Amar Rav Adam or Shmuel. So Shmuel says, "Kol zman shematpichin," as long as they can make something wet. Which means, if you touch it, do you feel moisture? If you feel moisture, it's still a problem. Kol zman shematpichin, as long as you can make something wet. Which means, if you could see a mark on the floor, but there's no moisture, then you would be allowed to recite Shema there, even though you see it. Who is this? Are we getting spam there? Another opinion, Rabbi Yochanan also says, as long as there's moisture. Third opinion, Ula, that says, who's it? All the time, that as long as shemat pichin, they're able to make something wet. So we have three opinions. The status, urine, status is as long as it can make something wet. Geniva says no. The Mishmei de Rav Amar, Geniva, quoting Rav, says, rishuman nikar. As long as you can recognize that there was urine here, even though it cannot make it doesn't make something moist. I'm going to, okay, I could do the next couple lines, but it's going to be a lot. But it's all about like different levels of feces, of how dry it is to consider feces and not. Like there's actual feces in front of you. How wet and how dry is the cutoff point? So I can either rush through this. I'm going to rush through this. Okay. So here's what we have with urine. We want to know until when it's an issue. So Shmuel tells us as long as you feel the moisture. Same thing Rabbi Yochanan says. Same thing Ula says, as long as you feel the moisture. Geniva says in the name of Rav, no, it's not about moisture. It says as long as you could tell that there is urine here. So sometimes you could stain, you could see there's a stain on the floor, even though that there's no moisture. So he is making it more strict by saying even if there's a mark there, then you can't recite Shema. Amar Rav Yosef says, how could Geniva say that? God has to forgive Geniva for saying this because it's so incorrect. Why? Because let's talk about this. We know that excrement is worse than urine because when it comes to excrement, if it's there, it's a problem from the Torah, and by urine, if it's there, it's not a problem from the Torah. Only it's rabbinic. Fine, but for urine, Geniva wants to tell us that even if you could tell that there is a mark there, but there's no moisture, you're still not allowed to. He said, what are you talking about? That's not the case by excrement. What do you mean? Because by by excrement, Rav says, Kevan shekarmu panei mutar. Once it starts to crust, once there starts to be a crust on the dung, then, like it starts to harden on the outside, mutar, you're allowed to recite Shema there. Miraglaimi baya. So, like, there's actual excrement there. It starts to have a crust. Rav says you could say Shema. Now you're telling me that the urine is not even there anymore. It's just there's a sign that urine used to be there, and you're telling me I can't say Shema. There's actual excrement here, and I can. There's no urine anymore. So Amarle Abai says, "My chazet samachtaha." Oh, you have a problem with what Geniva said because of this threshold of the crusting. Why are you relying on that statement? Samochaha. There's actually another statement in the quoting the name of Rav. The Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Rav said the following: So'a afilu kecheres asura. So'a, even if it's dry to the point that it's like pottery, it's a problem. Now, what does that mean? That means pottery is like it's like a mug, but it's clearly it's not like a mug. It's almost like wet pottery, but that's drier than something that's fully liquid, right? Like if you take some pottery, you could still shape it, right? It's not going to completely fall. So here, something that's earthenware, that it's dry, somewhat dry, but somewhat wet, it's a problem. Now, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? This is what I mean. What exactly does it mean for excrement to be like an earthenware vessel? I'll tell you what. If you take the excrement and you throw it, and it falls apart, then that's considered dry. That you're allowed to recite Shema. But if it doesn't fall apart, then it's still considered enough moisture so that it's wet. Some say no, it's not about throwing the dung. It's if you roll it. If you roll it and it falls apart and it starts to fall apart, crumble, then you know it's dry. But if it doesn't crumble, then you know it's wet. Who's doing this? This is what Rabbi Leibowitz said very nicely. The one thing that you learn from all of this is that Baruch Hashem for plumbing. The things that they would have to do. See, the thing is like, why would you ever be throwing excrement? The answer is because the guy has it, and he has to put it somewhere. So he takes it and he chucks it. And then as he chucks it, it starts to fall apart. Oh, that's considered dry. But if it doesn't fall apart, like it goes and stays in the same bowl, then that's considered wet. They used to handle excrement. Why? Because they had to. See, we just go like this and it's gone. It's just you don't even have an opportunity to get to play with it, right? Because it's gone. You don't even get that opportunity. But they used to have the opportunity because it would be there. So same with fertilizer, because they would make use of it. We just flush it away. They would make pottery out of it. Okay, I don't know, man. That's disgusting. But I guess so. I guess it's free. You have it already, so make some use out of it. All right, they would use it as okay. So, but you see here, like right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the cutoff of. Do you have excrement? Like how dry is dry enough that you're saying that it doesn't have its status anymore? So it's either if you see a crust on it, or a little bit further is if you throw it and it doesn't fall apart. Throw it and fall apart, it's considered dry. Or if you roll it and it falls apart and crumbles, then it's considered dry. These are the different cutoff points. I'm not going to go too much more. Amar Ravina. Ravina says, Hava kamina kamed Rav Yehuda midifti. Once I was with Rav Yehuda midifti, from the city of Difti. Chazat so'ah, and then when they were praying, all of a sudden they saw that there's excrement on the floor. Amar li, so he told me, Ravina says, he told me, Ayin, go look. Ikarmu panei alo, go see if it has a crust or not. Meaning that if there's a crust, it would be allowed to pray. If there's no crust, then we're not allowed to pray. Some say no, he asked for something else. Go see if there's cracks on it. He didn't see if there's crust on it. He wants to see if there's cracks on it. Okay, another sign. So what's the law? We want to know what is the law at the end. I really just want to finish this section, so give me 2 more minutes. So here's the statement. The halachic conclusion is, if excrement is as dry as pottery, which we gave different opinions as to what that is, Amar Asura. Amar says that level of dryness is not enough. so it's still asur to recite Shema next it. Or Mor Zutra Amar Muter. Mor Zutra says it is permissible at that point. Amar Rava. Rava says hilchita. The law is so'a kecheres asura. If you have excrement that is dry like earthenware vessel, it's asur, which means he's being strict that if it has the cracks on it, or if you throw it and it doesn't fall apart, he's being strict that it's asura. And urine is a problem as long as it's moist. It can make something moist. Meitve, we have a contradiction. I'm almost done. 3 more sections. Oh my gosh, we're not done. We're just going to do a little bit more. Meitve, we had a contradiction. When it comes to urine, we said that as long as it's moist and makes something moist, it's asur. Nivleu yavshu mutarin. But if it's absorbed or if it dried, then it's permitted. My love, nivleu dumya de yavshu. Doesn't that mean that the absorption and the drying is the same level? Ma yavshu de en rishuma nikar. When it dries, we're talking about that you can't tell that there is anything else there. Af nivleu de en rishuma nikar. So too, it's absorbed to the point that you can no longer tell it was there. Ha rishuma nikar. But if you can tell it's there, asur, it would be asur. Afagav de en matpichin. Even though that it's not moist. You see, what's happening is that we said that urine, if it's moist, it's a problem. But if it's fully dried up, it's okay. So the thing is, like, which part do you want to focus on? Because the part that says if it's fully dried up, which means that you can't, there's no trace of it, it's okay. Which means what? If there is a trace of it, it's not okay. So if I could tell it's there, but it's not moist, it's not okay. But then go to the first line. What does it say in the first line? As long as it's moist, it's a problem. If it's no longer moist, even if you could recognize it, there is a trace, it would be permitted. So we can't learn anything out from this. We don't know if there's urine there's no longer moist, but there's a trace of it, if you're allowed to pray there or not. Maybe, okay. I don't know what to do. Let me see. Yeah. We're going to do it. Sorry, we're going to do it. This is the machloket of Tanaim. Let's say there was a kli, some sort of a cup or a pot that they would urinate in. Now you take this thing and you pour it out. This thing doesn't have any more urine in it. You poured it out, but the thing is meant for urine. Asur lekrot kriyat Shema kenegdo. You may not recite Shema in front of this kli. And the urine itself that has fallen, nivleu mutar. If it's absorbed into the ground, you are allowed to recite Shema there. Lo nivleu asur. If it's not absorbed, you're not allowed to recite Shema there. Okay? So this thing that held the urine in it, you pour it out. This thing, you're not allowed to recite Shema there. But the urine itself, if it's absorbed, you are allowed to recite Shema. If it's not absorbed, you're not allowed to. Rabbi Yosef says, Kozman Shemat Bechin. He says it's not about whether it's absorbed or not. It's about whether it's moist or not. If you feel moisture, that's the cutoff. If you feel moisture, it's a problem. No moisture, it's not a problem. So the Gemara says, "My nivleu v'lo nivleu dekamar tanakama." So what is the first opinion talking about when he says if it's absorbed or not absorbed? Isn't that the same concept of if there's moisture or not moisture? Are you telling me that absorbed means that it no longer makes something moist, and not absorbed means it still has moisture? Then and then Rabbi Yosef, the second opinion says, as long as it's moist, it's a problem. But if you can see a trace, it's permitted. That's the same as the first opinion. Remember, the first opinion says that when you pour it out, if it's absorbed, it's okay. If it's not absorbed, it's not okay. Comes the second one and says, if it's moist, it's a problem. If it's not moist, it's okay. Are you guys saying the same thing? Like, does it get absorbed means that it's no longer moist, and not absorbed means that it's still moist, and you're saying the same thing? That, right? So Ella, so rather, nivleud en rishuman nikar. When you say absorbed, it means that there's not even a trace of it. You can't even tell. Lo nivleud en rishuman nikar. If it's not absorbed, it means that you could see a trace, but not that it's moist. And Rabbi Yosef says, no, as long as there's moisture, it's a problem. So now we're saying different cutoffs. One cutoff is that if it's completely absorbed and there's no trace of it, that's when it's permitted. But if you see a sign, it's a problem. And then it comes to Yosef says, no, it's only a problem if it's moist. You want to say that? Look, no. The kule ama kozman shemat bechinu de asur. Everyone, everyone agrees that as long as it's moist, it's a problem. But if it's not moist, it's okay. So what are they disagreeing with? Their machloket is not about moisture. Their machloket is moist to make something else moist. And I'm going to end you off with this. And this is the end of this Gemara that we just turned to Chafei Amud Bet. We just added an extra threshold in how wet urine is. Okay? Look at this. I'm going to do an experiment for everyone. I'm going to pour this on the table. Okay? I poured this thing of water on the table. Is this going to make me moist? Yes. So I'm going to touch this. My finger right here is moist. Now I touch this finger, and this finger is also moist. So this is tefach al manat la'atpiach. It's moist enough to make something else moist. You get it? So this level of moisture is so moist that I made my first finger moist and I made my second finger moist. However, okay, I just took my finger and I'm spreading it around this table, and now you have like a little paint spot over here. Now, it's very, 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 very thin layer. You can't see it on the screen, but I'm gonna touch this. My finger is moist. I see it wet. But I come here, it's not moist. You get it? So there's two levels of moisture. There's a level of moisture that can make something else moist, and there's a level of moisture that cannot make something else moist. That's what the machloket is here. Matpichin means they make something moist. Tofach al menat lahatfiach means that it's so moist that it can make something else. That's how much. So you need it to be a little bit more. This, if you look at let's see if I could just show you guys this, because we're talking about all this moisture here. Look at this. Look at this. You see this right here? This is very moist. Like you could see, it's like a whole thing here. Very moist. This is tofach amenat la'atviach. I take one finger, I make it moist. I have my other finger. This finger now is moist. If you look at the screen, okay. But this right here, can you even see it? I don't know if you could even see it on the screen, but there is a drop of moisture here. I'm going to touch it. This finger is indeed moist. If I touch this, I don't feel moisture. So that's tofach amenat la'atviach, that you need it to be moist enough to make something else moist. We are done talking about urinating and bathroom. Question? No? Okay, I have to answer Shelby's question. Shelby, this is for you. Are you allowed to use our modern day bathrooms for Torah study, for example? And the example I gave is I want to shave. I want to shave on a Friday afternoon. I know it's going to take me 20 minutes. I want to listen to a podcast. I want to listen to a shiur. Am I allowed to? Am I allowed to think Torah in the bathroom? I want to brush my teeth and listen to a recording. Am I allowed to? So the answer is, how do we view modern day bathrooms? Rav Yosef very strictly says that our modern day bathrooms are bathrooms, which means you cannot study Torah in there. You cannot say Shema in there. You cannot do anything there. Why? Because even though it's getting flushed down, this room, anything that's under this roof, almost like the roof concept, everything, Rav Yosef says is considered a bathroom. Rav Ben Zion Shaul, another opinion, says, hold on a second, the thing gets flushed away. So the toilet bowl itself, yeah, right next to the toilet, fine, that's bathroom. But 3 feet away, you're by the sink, that's not bathroom. So Rav Ben Zion Shaul would be lenient and say that the sink is not the bathroom. And according to him, you would be allowed to, for example, listen to Torah there. What does Rabbi Ben Chaim say? Rabbi Ben Chaim says, let's go in the middle. What does that mean, go in the middle? That means, let's say you want to do netilat yadayim, you want to wash your hands. You cannot do netilat yadayim in a bathroom. Proper. Why? Because even being in the bathroom is a problem. Remember, we said you stuck your hand in, it's a problem. So going in, your hand being in is a problem. So how are you going to go in there to do netilat yadayim? But, so according to, let's say, Rav Yosef, you really wouldn't. But Rabbi Ben Chaim says you can. Not in front of the toilet, but go there, wash your hands in the yadayim, but we don't say the bracha there. So what should you do? Let's say, for example, you want to do Netilat Yadayim. Rabbi Chaim says, like in line with what Rav Ben Zion Shaul tells us, you're not going to view the sink as a bathroom. You could wash 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, come out of the bathroom, make a bracha, and dry your hands. Because you should only dry your hands after you make the bracha. And if there's ever some extenuating circumstances, you know that you have this leniency of Rav Ben Zion Shaul to rely on. So you could do Netilat Yadayim, for example, or if there's some extenuating circumstance, we have this leniency, but Rav Yosef is strict, and because of that, Rabbi Chaim is also strict. So to answer your question about the shaving, unfortunately, no. You cannot be doing a shiur in the bathroom according to Rav Yosef, and therefore we don't do it. Now, what are you going to do? I think you could maybe, Joy, I see you're very upset. I'm sorry. Yeah, I told you that there's room for leniency, and according to Rav Ben Zion Shaul, there is room for leniency. But after I researched it more, I see that Rav Yosef says that no, it has a status of full bathroom, unless there's some sort of a separation. Sometimes some bathrooms they have the toilet like in a separate door post. Okay, there you go. What's it called?
WC,
A WC? What is that?
waste closet.
A waste closet? That's where the toilet is. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so yeah, so if the door is closing, it's for sure a different room, but even if there's no door, you could argue that it's a different room. So what should you do about your shaving or your brushing your teeth? I don't know, start using your kitchen sink. Something like that. Start shaving in the kitchen sink, or it would be really cool if you could make a sink outside of your bathroom. I'll just end you guys off with this. Many years ago, I was having a lunch with my colleagues, not Jewish, and we went to a kosher restaurant. And in the kosher restaurant, there was a bathroom. Right outside of the bathroom, there was a washing station for Netilat Yadayim. And this guy asked me, he's like, why is there a sink in the middle of this room? What is that for? Why isn't the sink in the bathroom? And I told him, it's just like, to me, it was so simple. There's a sink outside of the bathroom because you want to wash Netilat Yadayim outside of the bathroom. But it was them. He's like, I've never seen a sink outside of the bathroom. You're going to come out of the bathroom with your dirty hands, just wash it inside there. So you see, okay, so you see, it's a Jewish concept. Because of this idea of that the bathroom is not considered is considered unclean. So Joy, to recap the discussion, I know I had mentioned to you that there is room for leniency. There is. Rav Ben Zion Shaul says that in a bathroom, only the spot of the toilet is considered bathroom, but if you're away from it at the sink, it's not considered bathroom. However, after looking into it more, there's many that are still strict. So unless you have some pressing need, we really should be strict and not to think about Torah or to listen to Shira in the bathroom. Okay? All right. I know we went over, but we're done with this topic.
Hazak Baruch, Hazak Baruch.
Hazak Baruch, everyone. Have a good night.